The wind screamed across the frozen land, carrying sharp ice that cut the skin like knives. Snow never stopped in this place. It fell day and night, turning the world into a white graveyard. The mountains stood like broken teeth, and the sky was always heavy with clouds. In the middle of this silent wasteland, one small cabin stood alone. Its walls were old, its roof patched many times. Smoke rose weakly from the chimney. Inside, an old man sat near the fire. His beard was gray, his hands were strong but tired. His name was Elias. Elias had lived in the cabin for many years. He was a man who wanted no war, no cities, no rulers, only peace. He hunted for food, chopped his own wood, and spoke to no one. In the quiet, he found a kind of safety, but safety never lasts forever. That night, as Elias stirred a pot of thin soup, he heard a sound outside. At first he thought it was the wind, but then it came again. Soft, weak, almost like a cry. He froze. The storm outside was deadly. Nothing should be walking in it, not animal, not man. Slowly, Elias stood. He took his lantern and opened the cabin door. The wind struck his face like knives. He lifted the lantern high. The snow was falling so heavy he could barely see. But then he saw them, two small shapes. In the storm, they were curled together, shivering. Their clothes were torn, their skin almost glowing under the snow. Elias's heart tightened. They were children, two little girls. He rushed forward. His boots sank into the snow. He pulled the girls into his arms. Their bodies were ice cold, too light, like they had not eaten for days. Their faces were strange, not human. Their skin was pale blue, their hair silver white. Their eyes, large and shining like moons, looked at him with fear. But Elias did not hesitate. He carried them inside. Kicking the door shut behind him, he laid them near the fire, wrapped them in blankets, and checked their breaths. They were alive, but weak. The girls stared at him, not speaking. Elias did not know their language, but he knew hunger when he saw it. He filled 2 bowls of soup and placed bread beside them. "Eat," he said softly. "You are safe here." The girls looked at each other. Then, slowly, carefully, they lifted the spoons. Steam rose as they tasted the soup. Their eyes widened, and for the first time their faces showed something new. Relief. They ate like starving wolves, but still tried to keep their manners, taking small bites. Elias watched. His cabin was silent except for the crackle of fire and the clink of spoons. Outside, the storm roared, but inside, a fragile peace grew. He wanted to ask them where they came from, who their parents were, why they were wandering in the storm, but he stayed quiet. He had learned in his long life that sometimes silence gave more comfort than questions. The girls finished their meal. One of them whispered something in a strange musical tongue. The other nodded. Elias did not understand, but he saw gratitude in their eyes. Then came a noise that froze his blood. A deep, metallic hum rolled through. The storm outside, Elias stiffened. It was not thunder, it was not wind. It was something else, a sound that did not belong in nature. The girls' faces changed instantly. The relief was gone, replaced by fear, pure and sharp. They clutched each other, their silver hair trembling in the firelight. Elias stood. He walked to the window and peered through the frost. At first he saw only snow, but then a flash of light cut across the storm. A beam, searching, sweeping the land like the eye of a giant. Something was out there. Something was hunting. He turned back to the girls. Their glowing eyes were fixed on him, pleading. They shook their heads quickly, as if to say, "Do not open the door. Do not let it in." Elias understood. He grabbed the shutters and closed them tight. He added more wood to the fire, the cabin filled with warmth and shadows. The humming outside moved away, slowly, but not gone. The girls curled against each other under the blankets. Elias sat nearby, his old rifle across his knees. He did not know who these children were. He did not know what hunted them, but he knew one thing. He would not throw them back into the storm. And as the wind howled outside, Elias felt something stir inside him. Something he had not felt for many years, purpose. The storm outside raged all night, but inside the cabin the fire burned steady. Elias sat in his old chair, his rifle resting across his knees. His eyes never left the two girls curled near the flames, wrapped in blankets. They were asleep now, their small bodies breathing slowly. But even in sleep they did not rest easy. They twitched and whispered in a language he did not know. Elias frowned. He had seen strange things in his life, but never children like these. Their skin shimmered faintly in the firelight. A soft glow like moonlight trapped beneath the surface. Their silver-white hair clung to their faces, wet from melted snow. Their eyes, when they had been open, were far too large for human children. They seemed both fragile and unearthly. Elias leaned back, listening to the wind hammering the walls. He wondered who they were, why they had been out in the storm, why someone, or something, was hunting them. Morning came slowly, the light outside pale and gray. The storm had calmed, leaving deep snowdrifts across the land. The cabin creaked in the cold. Elias stirred the fire again, then prepared more soup. When the smell reached the girls, they stirred. Their eyes blinked open, wide and shining. They sat up quickly, still holding on to each other. Elias gave them a small smile. "Eat," he said, placing the bowls before them. "It will give you strength." The girls hesitated. Their hands shook. They looked at each other, then back at him. One of them spoke in their strange tongue, her voice soft and musical. Elias could not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. "Fear. I will not harm you," Elias said quietly. "You are safe here." Slowly they reached for the soup. They ate in silence, watching him with careful eyes. Elias moved slowly, making no sudden gestures. He wanted them to see he meant no danger. After the meal, the girls sat close to the fire, whispering together. Their voices rose and fell like a song. Elias tried to catch a word, but it was hopeless. Still, the sound was beautiful. He studied them carefully. They were not human, that much was certain, but they were children, frightened and alone. That truth was enough for him. Outside, the world remained deadly. Elias knew they could not survive out there alone. He decided then, he would shelter them, no matter the cost. Later that day, he gave them dry clothes from his old chest. They were too big, but he cut them down with a knife and tied them with rope. The girls laughed softly at each other when they tried on the clothes. It was the first time he had heard them laugh, and it warmed something deep inside him. They began to help him with small chores, carrying wood, sweeping the floor, clumsy but eager. Elias showed them how to chop kindling, how to hold the knife safely. They watched his hands closely, learning fast. Their eyes were sharp, their minds sharper, but not everything was peaceful. That night, the strange sound returned. The metallic hum drifted across the frozen valley, low and heavy. The girls froze where they stood. Their glowing eyes went wide with terror. They clutched Elias's arm, whispering fast in their own tongue. Their fear was raw. Elias moved to the window. The sound grew louder, closer. He saw nothing in the dark, but he felt it. Something searching, hunting. The hum passed slowly, like a predator sniffing for prey, then faded back into the night. The girls stayed awake long after, huddled together, staring at the door. Elias kept the fire strong. He whispered, "It cannot find you here." Though he was not certain. Days passed. The storm lifted, but the land outside was still frozen. The girls stayed in the cabin, helping with chores. Their fear of the noise never left them. Every time the metallic hum returned, they went silent, as if they believed even breathing too loud would reveal them. Elias did not ask questions. He knew they carried secrets, but he also knew pressing them would do no good. He gave them time, space, safety. One evening, as the firelight danced on the walls, one of the girls reached for the wooden carving knife. She took a piece of scrap wood and began to shape it. Elias watched quietly. Her hands were careful, her focus deep. When she finished, she handed it to him. It was a small figure, a rough carving of Elias himself, Standing with his rifle, the man stared at it, his throat tight. He had lived alone for many years, yet here was proof that someone saw him, remembered him, valued him. He nodded once, unable to speak. The girls smiled faintly, and for the first time, their fear seemed lighter. But outside in the dark, the hunters still searched, and Elias knew it was only a matter of time before danger found his door. The days passed slowly in the cabin. Each morning Elias woke before the sun, chopped wood, and stirred the fire back to life. The two girls, though strangers from another world, began to join him in these simple tasks they learned quickly. One carried logs, though her arms shook under the weight. The other swept the wooden floor with a broom almost as tall as she was. Their clumsy efforts made Elias smile. They were trying, and that mattered more than skill. He showed them how to slice vegetables, how to stir the soup without spilling. Their eyes followed his every move, sharp and hungry to learn. When he handed them tools, their glowing fingers trembled, but soon grew steady. They were survivors even at such a young age. The cabin, once silent as a grave, now carried new sounds. The crack of wood splitting under the axe, soft footsteps running across the floor, gentle laughter when one girl spilled flour all over herself. These sounds wrapped around Elias's heart like a forgotten warmth, but even in peace shadows waited. The girls spoke often in their strange tongue, whispering together by the fire. Sometimes their voices rose like song, soft and beautiful. Elias could not understand a word, but he listened. Their language was not harsh, it was smooth, flowing like water. He wondered what secrets hid inside those sounds. At night, when the cabin grew quiet, Elias often caught them staring at the stars through the frost-covered window. Their glowing eyes reflected the night sky as if it belonged to them. They whispered to each other, and sometimes their faces grew sad. Elias knew then they were remembering something, a home, a family, a world lost. One evening, Elias offered them a book. Its pages were worn, the letters faded. He pointed at the words slowly, reading them aloud in his deep voice. At first, the girls only watched, confused. Then little by little they began to repeat the words, their voices soft, broken but determined. Fire, Elias said, pointing to the flames. Fire, they echoed. Bread, he said, breaking a piece. Bread, they whispered, smiling faintly. It became a game, a quiet lesson every night. Each day, their English grew. They still whispered in their own tongue, but now they began to speak with him too. The first time one of them said, "Thank you," Elias almost forgot to breathe. The bond grew stronger, not in words but in trust. They no longer flinched when he moved close. They laughed more easily. They ate at his table without fear. Yet, danger still haunted the edges of their world. The metallic hum returned again and again, sometimes far away, sometimes so close the cabin walls trembled. The girls always froze at the sound, clutching each other, eyes wide with terror. Elias kept his rifle ready, though deep down he knew a rifle would not stop whatever hunted them. One night, the sound lasted longer than ever. The cabin filled with dread. The girls hid under the blankets. Elias sat in his chair, hand gripping the rifle so tight his knuckles turned white. The hum circled, searching. Then, at last, it drifted away, fading into the storm. After that night, Elias knew the truth. Whatever hunted them would never stop. Still, he kept his silence. He did not demand answers. He did not ask who they were. He only gave them what they needed: food, warmth, and a place to feel safe. He thought of them as his own now, though he never spoke it aloud. One morning, as the sun rose pale and weak over the mountains, the younger girl brought him a carving. She had used his knife to shape wood into a small figure. This one was not of him. It was of the two of them, standing side by side, their glowing eyes. Carved with careful hands, Elias's chest tightened. He looked at the carving, then at the girls. They watched him with quiet hope. He nodded once, his voice rough as he said, "Beautiful." The girls smiled, their silver hair shining in the morning light. For a moment the cabin felt less like a shelter and more like a home, but deep inside, Elias knew homes built on secrets could never last. He noticed it more and more. The way the girls always glanced toward the door when the hum echoed. The way they froze whenever lights flickered in the night sky. Something out there was still searching for them. Something powerful. Something relentless. One night as the fire burned low, Elias woke to whispers. The girls thought he slept, but his eyes stayed half open. He listened. Their language rose and fell like a song, urgent and fast. He caught only a few English words among them. Danger, find, soon. He closed his eyes, pretending to sleep, his heart heavy. Whatever their past, it was catching up with them. Yet he made a silent promise to himself. He would stand with them no matter what. And though he did not know it then, that promise would shape the fate of not only his life, but the stars themselves. Winter lingered in the mountains like a stubborn ghost. The storms came and went, covering the world in endless white. But inside the cabin, life had taken on a fragile rhythm. Elias rose early. The girls helped with the fire and the food, and together they lived as though the cabin had always been their home. Weeks turned into months, and in that time the girls had grown stronger. Their faces no longer carried the hollow look of hunger. Their hands, once trembling, now worked steady as they chopped wood or stirred soup. They laughed more, spoke more, and though their strange language still filled the nights, they used his words during the day. "Father," one of them whispered once by accident, her glowing eyes wide after the word slipped. Elias said nothing, but inside, the word struck him like a spark in dry wood. He had no children of his own, but in that moment he felt the weight of the word and did not push it away. But happiness does not stay long in a world filled with shadows. It began with the lights. Elias noticed them first, bright streaks moving across the night sky, not like stars, not like storms. They pulsed, searching, scanning the valley like giant eyes. The girls saw them too, and when they did, their faces turned pale. They whispered to each other, urgent, afraid, as if the lights carried a name they dared not speak. Elias wanted to ask, but he never did. He had learned to keep silence, when silence gave comfort still. The worry in his chest grew heavier each night. Then one morning the cabin was empty. Elias woke to the sound of wind pressing against the walls. The fire had burned low. He reached for his boots, but something felt wrong. He turned, expecting to see the two small forms curled beneath the blankets near the fire. But the space was empty. The blankets lay folded neatly, untouched. At first he thought they might be outside, perhaps fetching wood. He stepped into the snow, calling softly. His voice was swallowed by the vast silence of the mountains. No footsteps, no laughter. Nothing but endless white. He searched around the cabin, his boots sinking deep into the snow, but there was no sign of them, no tracks, no trail, as if the storm itself had swallowed them whole. When he returned inside, he saw it. On the wooden table near the fire, two small figures stood, carved carefully from scraps of wood. His breath caught. He stepped closer. His rough fingers lifted one of them. The carving was of him. His beard, his rifle, his heavy coat, all shaped with careful detail. The other figure was of the girls, standing close together, their large eyes carved with simple strokes. Elias sat heavily in his chair, staring at the carvings. His throat tightened. His chest ached in a way he had not felt for years. They were gone, but they had left him this, a reminder, a thank you. He did not weep. He only sat in silence, the crackle of the fire filling the room. His cabin, once alive with their laughter, now felt too big, too quiet. The days that followed stretched long. Elias still chopped wood, still hunted, still stirred the fire, but every task felt hollow. His eyes drifted often to the window, half expecting to see them running back, their silver hair glowing in the sun, their strange voices filling the air. But the snow remained empty. At night he carved. He took his knife and worked the wood, shaping more figures, sometimes of the girls, sometimes of the cabin, sometimes of himself standing beside them. It was his way to keep them near, to fight against the silence, but the world outside did not let him forget. The metallic hum returned, stronger now, echoing across the mountains like thunder. The lights in the sky swept lower, brighter. Elias stood at his window, rifle in hand, his jaw tight. He realized then what had happened. The girls had not simply wandered away. They had left on purpose. They had run from the thing that hunted them, run to keep him safe. He was certain of it, and yet he could not help but wonder if he would ever see them again. Years rolled on. The seasons shifted, but the memory of that winter stayed sharp in Elias's mind. He grew older. His hair turned silver like theirs, but the carvings remained on the table, untouched. Every night before he lay down, he looked at them and whispered, "Be safe," as if his voice might somehow cross the stars. He did not know where they had gone, he did not know if they still lived, but deep in his chest burned a small, stubborn hope. Hope that one day the door would open and the sound of their laughter would return. But until then, Elias sat by the fire, a rifle by his side, waiting, always waiting. 10 years is a long time for any man, and for Elias it felt like a lifetime. The seasons had come and gone, storms had torn across the mountains, and the snow still ruled the land. Yet through all those years, the cabin stood, and Elias endured. He had grown older. His beard was thick and silver now. His back ached more when he lifted wood. His steps were slower when he hunted. Still, he survived. He was a man built for hardship. But even the strongest men carried ghosts every night before sleep. He looked at the wooden carvings on the table. 2 small figures of the girls, 1 figure of himself. Their faces were simple lines of wood, but to him they were alive. He spoke to them sometimes in the quiet, words no one else would hear. "You are safe, I hope, wherever you are," he would whisper. The memory of that winter had never faded. He still saw their glowing eyes, still heard their voices in his dreams. And though the cabin was silent now, a small part of him still waited for the door to open again, still hoped to hear the sound of their laughter. Life went on in its simple rhythm, until one evening everything changed. It began with a tremor. The ground shook under his boots as he brought in firewood. At first he thought it was an avalanche, but then he heard it, a deep, powerful hum unlike the metallic drone he remembered from years ago. This sound was louder, stronger, filled with power. Elias froze. The logs slipped from his arms, crashing into the snow. He looked up, and his breath caught in his chest. The sky above the valley was alive with light, not the cold flashes of lightning, but glowing beams that moved with precision. They cut through the storm clouds, spreading across the mountains like fingers of fire. The hum grew deeper, shaking the air. Then, through the falling snow, he saw it, a massive shape, descending from the sky. Its surface gleamed like polished metal, smooth and flawless. Its lights pulsed bright blue and gold, illuminating the frozen land. Slowly it lowered itself into the valley, snow whipping around it in violent storms. Elias's heart pounded. He had seen machines before, military ships from wars long past, but nothing like this. This was not a war machine. This was something grander, something built not just for survival, but for luxury, for power. A spaceship, vast and elegant, had landed at his door. The ground trembled as its massive frame settled into the snow. A ramp unfolded slowly, steam hissing as metal touched the earth. The lights from within glowed warm, casting golden rays across the white valley. Elias stood frozen. His rifle slipped from his hands, landing in the snow. His breath misted in the cold air. His eyes wide, memories flooded him. The glowing eyes of 2 frightened girls, the way they whispered in the night, the way they disappeared without a trace. The sound of hunters searching for them, the carvings left behind. His chest tightened. Could it be them? After all these years? The hum died down, replaced by silence so heavy it pressed on his ears. The ramp was still, waiting. Then movement. 2 figures appeared at the top, silhouettes against the glowing light. Tall, graceful, their steps slow and certain. Their shapes were not of men. They were something other, something more. Elias's throat went dry. His heart thundered in his chest. The figures descended, each step deliberate. Their hair shone silver in the golden light. Their skin glowed faintly blue. Their eyes, even from a distance, were bright, like moons carried inside their faces. He staggered back a step, disbelief shaking him. 10 years had passed. Yet he knew them at once. He would have known them anywhere. The girls, no longer children, had returned. They were tall now, their movements strong and sure. They wore garments of shining cloth embroidered with threads that glimmered like starlight. Their faces were older, sharper, yet still filled with the same warmth he remembered. Elias's eyes blurred with tears he did not expect. He had lived so long with silence, so long with memory. He had never truly believed he would see them again. Yet here they were, stepping down the ramp of a ship that did not belong to this world. The younger one reached the ground first. Her glowing eyes met his, and for a heartbeat she froze. Then her lips curved into a smile, trembling with emotion. The other came beside her. She lifted her hand slowly, as if afraid he might vanish. And in voices deeper now, older, but unmistakably theirs, they spoke the word that shattered the silence, Father. The sound broke him. His knees weakened, his chest ached. He wanted to speak, to ask questions, to demand where they had gone. But the only thing he could do was stand in the snow, tears running down his face, staring at the daughters he never thought he'd see again. Behind them, the ship loomed vast and silent, a beast of gold and steel. Its lights glowed brighter, promising wonders he could not yet imagine. Elias realized then that the quiet life he had built, the lonely years of waiting, had come to an end. The universe had come to his door, carried by the very children he had once saved with nothing more than soup and bread. And though fear and questions filled his mind, one truth burned brighter than all the rest. They had not forgotten him. The snow crunched under Elias's boots as he stepped closer. His breath came in short, uneven bursts. His heart beat like a drum in his chest. For 10 years he had lived with only silence and memory, and now the past stood before him alive and shining. The two young women stopped at the bottom of the ramp. The golden light from the ship framed them like a halo. Their silver hair glimmered in the night. Their eyes glowed bright, more radiant than ever. They were no longer fragile children. They were strong now, tall, proud, and beautiful. Yet when they looked at him, their faces softened. For a moment no one moved. The storm around them seemed to pause. The snowflakes hung in the air, silent witnesses to a reunion carved by fate. Elias's throat tightened. His voice, when it came, was rough and broken. You came back? The younger of the two, her voice deeper now but still carrying that soft music, stepped forward. She hesitated, then reached out. Her hand, glowing faintly blue, touched his rough, weathered fingers. Her eyes filled with tears. "We never forgot you, Father." The word struck him again like a blade and a balm all at once. His knees almost gave way. For 10 years he had whispered to the carvings, spoken to the empty cabin, and now the word returned to him. Real. Alive. The older sister placed a hand on his shoulder. Her strength surprised him. She was no longer the frightened child who once hid beneath blankets. Her presence carried weight, like a leader, like someone who had faced storms far greater than winter. "You saved us," she said simply. "You gave us warmth when we had nothing. You gave us life, and we swore we would return." Elias swallowed hard. He wanted to ask 1,000 questions. Where they had been, what had hunted them, what this ship was, what kind of people they truly were. But the words tangled in his throat, for now he could only stand in awe. The girls, no, the women, glanced at each other, then back at him. They guided him toward the ship. Elias hesitated. His cabin stood. Behind him, small, worn yet filled with every memory of the last decade. His carvings, his fire, his solitude. But the ship waited, vast and gleaming, a doorway into another world. Inside, the air was warm, scented with something sweet and strange. The walls gleamed silver and gold. Lights pulsed gently like living stars. The floor hummed softly beneath his boots. Elias had never stepped into anything like it. His cabin suddenly felt like a shadow compared to this place. The girls led him through a corridor, and he realized the ship was not empty. Shadows moved. Figures bowed their heads as they passed. Their skin, too, glowed faintly. Their clothes shimmered with strange designs. Elias's eyes widened. He understood. These were their people. The same race as the children he had sheltered. Whispers followed them, curious, respectful. Elias did not understand the words, but he felt the weight of them. The two young women walked with grace. The way others looked at them was not casual. It was reverent, as though they were more than travelers, more than survivors. Finally, the three entered a chamber filled with soft light. The walls curved like the inside of a pearl. At its center stood a round table, glowing faintly. The women gestured for Elias to sit. He lowered himself into the chair, rough hands gripping his knees. His eyes flicked between them. The silence pressed heavy, until at last, the older sister spoke. "We are not just wanderers," she said. Her voice was calm, steady, carrying authority. "We are daughters of a fallen dynasty. Our family ruled once, long ago, until war took everything. We were hunted as children, forced to hide, forced to flee. And on that night when the storm nearly killed us, you found us. You gave us food when we were starving. You gave us fire when the universe turned cold. You gave us hope when all hope was gone." The younger sister leaned forward. Her glowing eyes shone with emotion. "We left to protect you, Father. They were still searching for us. If they had found your cabin, you would have died because of us. We could not let that happen, but we swore we would return when it was safe. And now, it is safe." Elias's hands shook as he listened. He felt the weight of their words settle inside him. 10 years of silence now had meaning. 10 years of waiting had led to this moment. He stared at them, his eyes wet. "You grew strong," he whispered. "Stronger than I ever imagined." The older one smiled faintly, but her eyes were serious. "We grew strong because of you, Father. We carried your kindness through every trial. It kept us alive. It reminded us of what mattered." Elias sat back, overwhelmed. He had once thought himself just an old man in a forgotten cabin. But now he saw the truth. His small act of kindness had changed the path of worlds. Outside, the ship hummed with power. Inside, Elias felt something stir in his chest. For the first time in years, he was not waiting for silence, not waiting for ghosts. He was living again. And though he did not yet know what destiny awaited him among the stars, he knew one thing with certainty. His daughters had come home. Elias sat in silence, his rough hands resting on the glowing table. His eyes moved from one daughter to the other, still half afraid they might vanish like a dream, but they did not vanish. They sat with him, real, alive, their silver hair shining under the lights of the ship. He tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. For 10 years, he had lived only with the memory of their faces. Now those memories breathed before him, older, stronger, radiant. The older sister broke the silence, her voice calm but filled with power. "You gave us more than food, Father. You gave us the strength to keep living when all hope was gone." The younger sister's eyes glistened. Her hand slid across the table to hold his. Her skin was cool but gentle. "We swore we would return, and not just with thanks, but with everything you deserve." Elias frowned, his weathered face lined with confusion. "I gave you bread, a little soup. That is all." The sisters exchanged a glance. Then the older one stood. She moved to the wall, touching a small panel. A section of the chamber opened, revealing a wide view of the valley outside. The ship's lights bathed the snow in gold, and there, waiting on the ground, were machines Elias had never seen before. Sleek transports, containers filled with goods, treasures shining through glass. He saw weapons shaped from light, crates of precious metals, food that glowed faintly as though made from stars themselves. "This," she said, "is what we bring to you." Elias rose slowly, his old bones creaking, his eyes widened. He had lived with so little, with patched clothes, thin soup, and loneliness. Now before him lay wealth beyond imagination, yet he shook his head. "I never wanted riches," he muttered. "I only wanted peace." The younger sister smiled gently. "And peace you shall have, father, but also comfort. No more hunger, no more cold nights. You will never be alone again." Her words broke him. His chest tightened, and for the first time in many years tears slid freely down his face, but the gifts were not only material. The older sister turned back to him, her eyes bright and serious. "There is more you must know. The galaxy does not forget. Word of your kindness has reached far beyond this world. We are not only daughters of a fallen dynasty. We are leaders now. Our people have gathered. Our fleets are rebuilt. Our home rises again. And you, Father, are part of that story." Elias blinked, his voice rough. "Me? I am just a man in a cabin." The younger sister shook her head firmly. "No. You are the man who fed us when we had nothing. You are the man who risked his life to hide us. You are the man who gave a dynasty back its heirs. You are not just a man. You are the beginning." Her words struck him like a hammer. For years he had thought himself forgotten, a ghost in the snow. Now he saw the truth. His small act of kindness had changed the path of worlds. The ship's walls shifted, revealing another chamber. At its center stood a seat, tall and carved with silver and light. A throne, Elias realized, though he could not imagine sitting on it. The older sister gestured toward it. "You will not rule our people, Father. That is our duty. But this seat is yours all the same. It is a place of honor. For as long as our dynasty stands, your name will be remembered. The man who gave warmth in the cold. The man who gave life when all else was death." Elias stared at the throne, his hands trembled. He had never wanted power, never asked for glory. Yet the pride in their voices made him straighten his back. He was old, but in that moment he felt strong. Slowly he lowered himself into the seat. The lights of the chamber brightened, the walls seemed to hum, and across the room, his daughters bowed their heads, not as children, but as rulers paying respect. Elias's heart swelled. He had once thought his life small, empty, forgotten. Now he saw it for what it was, a spark that had lit a fire across the stars. The younger sister stepped forward, placing something in his hands. It was small, carved from wood. His own carving, returned to him after so many years. The little figure of himself with his rifle, she whispered. "We kept it always, Father. It reminded us of who we were and who we had to become." Elias's vision blurred again. He closed his fingers around the carving, holding it like treasure. The ship lifted into the air, rising above the valley. The cabin grew smaller below, the lonely home where the story had begun. The snow-covered mountains shrank, until they were only shadows in the distance, and Elias, once a hermit forgotten by the world, now sat among stars, his daughters at his side. The galaxy would remember him not as a lonely man in a cabin, but as the father of queens, the man who gave kindness when no one else would, the man whose simple gift of bread and soup had changed history. And though his journey had been long and filled with silence, Elias now knew one truth that would never fade. Sometimes the smallest kindness can echo across eternity.